Hello, and welcome to the Blue Shadow Podcast. My name is Joey.
I am Dan.
And it's a very special day today. It is Dan's birthday. So happy birthday, Dan.
Thank you so much. It is. It's on a weekend this year.
That's always exciting.
Haven't had that since 5 years ago.
Wow, that is...
Or 4 years ago. I don't know.
It's something else to celebrate regardless. My birthday's been on the weekday essentially for... however many years, a long time. So it's going to be on a Friday this year, this coming year, which is exciting. But yeah, happy birthday, Dan. And we're excited to this week talk about the penultimate episode of the Bad Batch, which we're sad to see it go, but excited to see what happens.
Dare I say, I'm not... The tears aren't ready for me yet, so I feel like we're in for one wild ride next week.
I know. I don't want to think about it.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, and then we're also going to, for our fun segment this week, discuss our thoughts on the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, which came out this week, and we're both very excited about.
Yes. So
we want to start out with our usual, what have we been watching, reading, playing? Dan, what have you been up to?
I restarted my watch of the old Twilight Zone show. They're really good.
We didn't talk about this.
Yes, they are. It's not something I'm just going to work into conversation.
Oh.
But yeah, they're from the 50s. With Rod Sterling. They're great. Teach a lesson.
I've never watched it.
They're good. They're on Paramount.
Oh, how about that? So you like it? You're enjoying it?
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of them before. I got through maybe season 1 or season 2.
How many seasons are there?
5.
Okay.
It's like 36 episodes a season.
Holy cow. Are they like 20-minute episodes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, so I've been watching that, and that's really all I've had time to do. Been playing Candy Crush with my girlfriend. Don't laugh. You're laughing because you're jealous.
I'm laughing because we go to trivia every few weeks, every other week, depending. And the last time we walked in, they were both huddled over one of their phones playing Candy Crush.
I think I'm on level 500 something. Which, in the grand scheme of things, is not very high. The game's been out for like 12 years.
I don't even know what to say to that, Dan. I'm just kidding. No, I really like Candy Crush.
It's addicting.
It is addicting. I haven't played it in a long time.
Don't. It'll take up all your time.
Well, and we, another thing that we both do is Marvel Snap, which we talk about often.
Played that a little bit this morning.
It's a great game.
I lost.
Oh, Dan, be nicer to yourself.
No, I played 2 games and lost 2 games.
Well, you'll bounce back. But
how about you? What have you been up to?
I get addicted to things. Mm-hmm. So if I can't do more than one mobile game at a time, or nothing else would happen.
So you're never going to get another mobile game again
until Marvel Snap loses steam for me. Probably not.
Yeah.
And who knows how long that'll be. But what have I been up to? Same as I've been up to for the last how long? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has been consuming a lot of my time. I was telling Dan before we recorded, I just got to the point where it says, you can't turn back if you go here, which means I'm close to the end. As I said last week, like maybe within the upcoming week or two, I'll have like a little review of it out. I'm very excited about it. I'm really enjoying it. And then we're still working through X-Men the Animated Series. We're in season 4 of 5 now, so I'm really looking forward to being able to watch X-Men 97.
Me too. I'm going to start X-Men.
I feel like you should just start X-Men 97. No? You want to do it all?
I want to go into it knowing a little bit more about the characters than I do. I was not an X-Men fan growing up. I couldn't get. I tried to watch the X-Men movies.
Well,
I couldn't get into them.
Those have their own sets of issues. I think if you can get past the 90s nature of the animation at first,
I don't care.
You'll really enjoy the animated series.
I grew up watching like Tom and Jerry. I'm fine with old animation.
It has a little bit of like old animation shtick, but then also like 90s references. Like Cyclops will go, I surrender, not, and like shoots his little eye laser. It's ridiculous, but I love
Anakin
it.
Of him.
Yes, no, it's very entertaining. But yeah, those have really been what I have to other than Marvel Snap. I'm looking forward to finishing Final Fantasy VII. Mm-hmm. I've been playing it. I think the first week we started this podcast is when it came out.
Yeah.
And I've been playing it ever since.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get onto something new. Maybe, I think I talked about the Final Fantasy 16 DLC coming out, so I want to do that.
It's exciting.
Helldivers, Dan wants me to play desperately.
I haven't gotten onto it in a while. I mainly play with my friend. Mm-hmm. So that's how we do it. But a squad of 3 or 4 would be nice.
We can make it happen.
Could.
I have a friend who's already gotten it that I told to get it so we could play together.
Does he like it?
Yes, he loves it.
It's great. It's
fantastic. Yeah, no, I'm the lag.
It's a great game that's always being updated.
I'm now 76 hours into Final Fantasy, so I really need to. Dan's face just dropped.
I'm not judging because it's not like I don't put out that many hours into a game.
It's that many hours into one game.
It's that many hours into a story game.
It's darn good.
I'm not doubting it, but like I'll put 100 some hours into multiplayer games because I'll do it. I'll play a match here or there, 2 or 7 or whatever we want to call it for that day.
It's a lot.
I know.
It's fun. It's fun. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into our discussion of the Bad Batch. This episode,
you mean the Sad Batch?
It is the Sad Batch. In this episode, building on the Sad Batch concept, is season 3, episode 14, called Flash Strike. What did you think of this episode, Dan?
It was really good. Very direct.
Very direct.
Very short. We'll discuss some more at the end of it, the rest of my thoughts on it.
Yeah,
but overall, very good.
Very good. We oftentimes will talk about like the big ideas. There weren't really many big ideas or lessons to be learned here. This felt like a part of a movie. I feel like the last few weeks it's felt like we are watching a movie and just kind of like pausing.
Yep.
And pausing, which, it is what it is. And I don't anticipate this being an issue ever again when we watch this show. Like if you rewatch the show.
And that's just it. And I'm jealous of the people who aren't into it yet and to get to watch it all at one time. For like me, when I watched the Clone Wars, I was able to watch it all straight through. So it was great. I didn't have to wait. For example, everybody loves the Umbara arc of the Clone Wars. I watched it in a day.
That was my experience with Clone Wars. And with Rebels, I watched Rebels like from the first season weekly. And it did leave me with spoilers for Rebels. You probably, if you're listening to this, have watched it. If not, fast forward like 30 seconds. But leaving, like, Ahsoka I thought, died for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And
then they just left it.
And I was like, all right, I guess that's it. And then I remember vaulting myself off of my couch in my dorm room in college when I found out that Ahsoka was still alive. It was phenomenal. Anyway, I think on a rewatch, this will age better than just watching them individually.
I agree.
But we usually talk about the titles of the names. I think that much like the episode itself, it's very direct.
Yep.
Flash Strike, I think it's the strike of the Bad Batch onto Tantus.
Yeah.
That's it. My favorite part of this episode, before we kind of break the plot into the little pieces, is Rampart screaming. It was easily my favorite part of this episode.
Yeah. He's such a good character.
I would not have said that prior to this season.
And we're going to talk about him a little bit later, but he's such a good character.
I wouldn't have guessed Rampart's return as something if we did like things we thought would happen, but I'm glad they did.
Not gonna lie to you, I thought Tech would have come back before Rampart did.
Oh, I don't want to talk about it. We're getting on the wire. I'm starting to look like an idiot, I feel like.
You're not. Nobody's gonna look like an idiot.
I'm starting to look like a hopeful idiot. How about that?
You look like a hopeful fan.
I am a hopeful fan. Tech Watch. Anyway, so we start this episode, and we're going through the shuttle, and we see Rampart being a little sassy, talking about how, as he said, they're going to be detected as soon as they jump out of hyperspace. Hunter says they're going to detach, and then they get into this kind of Bad Batch style action scene. That hasn't quite happened yet, actually, but we do the science vessel, and we see, like, just kind of talking about the beginning of the episode. We have these discussions with the Bad Batch, and then we have Echo kind of in the science vessel working on a computer. What do you think Echo was doing on the computer is kind of something I wanted to ask.
I'm not sure, unless he was just doing stuff to make himself seem useful.
My hope is he's getting the location to send to Rex.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hopeful. See, skewing, you're like, he's just punching away.
No.
Might as well be Tech pressing those buttons.
That makes sense. Letting Rex know.
Now, I don't know if that would happen or if he would be able to get a transmission out without being detected. But
they were detected.
Let's
not forget, because as they are approaching, it cuts to Tantus, and Scorch pretty much tells Hemlock they're coming. They are on that ship.
I wasn't necessarily expecting them to be as prepared.
No,
I mean, it makes sense.
I mean, at least it's also, how long is it? How far away is it? How long did they have to prepare?
Probably long enough to get all the communication in line for that. But I think the Bad Batch we've talked about a few times. They're not subtle.
No.
They're the opposite of subtle. They may be the least subtle characters in all of Star Wars, other than Jar Jar Binks.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader's not subtle either.
No, but he's not subtle in the coolest way.
Yes.
I mean, the man used the Force to make his cape fly in the wind in the vacuum of space.
I think Hunter would do that if he could.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
But so yeah, they kind of know this, and then they end up getting into the atmosphere of the planet. They detach from the science vessel, and then this is where we start the Bad Batch action that I was starting to bring up earlier. And they kind of realize, oh crap, that they know. Crosshair says this isn't a normal, like, what was flight pattern? Is that?
Yeah, that's.
They wouldn't
like patrol.
Yeah, this is not that. They know, and so that starts to happen, and we see cool Bad Batch action as always. And they end up hitting the shuttle, and then it kind of starts to crash. But as that's happening, we end up in the cutting to Omega and the kids, and then you hear these like explosions, and Omega immediately knows that that's got to be her family.
Yeah,
I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, they ask what these are, and Omega almost smirking goes, "Those are laser cannons. My brothers are coming for me." I think it was. I loved how she said, "My brothers."
I know. I wasn't sure what she was going to say when I was watching it. It was like, that's the best case scenario. Were you surprised that they could feel like the reverberations of whatever was happening?
Leads me to wonder where the vault is.
That's in my mind. The vault is in like the core of the mountain,
right? But now it seems like it's
maybe it's not. Maybe it's on the edge.
I feel like it's on the edge.
And I don't necessarily think this is something they're gonna explain. But
I think they need to. It also just shows. I mean, when we see laser cannons, we see them mounted on ships, on Super Star Destroyers, or mounted on the Death Star. They could also just be really, really powerful. I mean, they have to be. They're there to shoot down ships.
Yeah,
and shoot down capital ships.
So yeah, maybe we're thinking too far into the physical location of the vault.
Okay.
But I thought that was interesting.
We're gonna find out the physical location of the vault pretty soon.
Yes, and now before we talk about what Omega ends up getting up to, we do end up cutting back to the Bad Batch and Rampart. And they end up leaving, like, crash landing using these ropes to get out of the ship. And that's where we see Crosshair and Wrecker go out, and then we see a reluctant Rampart leave with Hunter, and that's where we get my favorite Star Wars scream, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was so cartoonish in the best way possible.
It wasn't the Wilhelm scream, was
No, it was longer, shriller, and more dramatic.
You know what that scene reminded me of?
What?
You know.
Do I know?
You know.
You're going to say tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Especially because this guy, that had to be on purpose, right?
Oh, 100%.
Because he shoots
100%.
it, and like, of course, Rampart survives that.
Well, because there was somebody underneath to catch him.
That's true.
But I also think it shows their growth at the Bad Batch growth. Like, they made that mistake before. They're not going to make that mistake again.
And also, I don't want to say surprised, but it's very expected for them. But the fact that they did willingly save Rampart speaks to their character.
And I think they still need Rampart. I don't know for what yet, but I think they need him for something.
Yeah.
Which we can talk about in a bit.
So they end up we're now cutting back to Echo, and we see Echo kind of fiddling around the ship, and we see that they sent, because they know this vessel has been compromised in some way, they sent my wife will love this term, stormtrooper auditors to go see what was going on in there. And that's for you, Jenna. She's going to hate that. But they're going on, they're searching, and to escape, Echo essentially is able to shoot a droid that detected him, put on stormtrooper armor, and then attach the droids. I think he'd put the stormtrooper armor first.
Yeah.
And then attaching the droid's hand. I love the cheesy line of "thanks for the hand."
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of cheesy dialogue, so
I know.
It's really good.
I thought it was cool too how they gave Echo a universal plug.
I know. It's like USB-C.
It's like seriously, the downfall of the Empire came because they got too lazy and didn't switch up
their plugs. You haven't played. You haven't gotten that far into Fallen Order, I think, to get the Scomp link, right?
No.
That's what that port thing is called, and BD1 gets it, and he like puts it in his little foot. And so anytime I see it in Star Wars, whether it's like in the original trilogy with R2 or in something like this, I always think Scomp link. Nice. So yes. Anyway, obscure Star Wars references are always fun. But yeah, so they're Echo is actually able to escape using the droid tube again, which I thought was a nice little detail. Again,
he is a droid, as they said in Season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Poor Echo.
He is more droid than human.
I, again, am so excited to see Echo with them and, like, being part of the team again after having left. And with no better reason saving Omega than to get back with his boys.
Echo needs a tan.
Poor Echo. Leave Echo be. He had some trouble.
We could do a whole episode on Echo.
I know. And maybe we might.
Yeah.
But yeah, we kind of honestly for the rest of like some of the Bad Batch action, we kind of in typical Bad Batch fashion maybe see our last new Bad Batch monster in the woods when they're kind of creeping around. New is my emphasis there. We'll get there. But we see this monster that ends up attacking them, leading to another excellent Rampart scream.
Yeah.
Which is, again, fantastic. And they, we're now in the situation where the Empire that's patrolling the woods knows where they are because they're shooting. Mm-hmm. And we ultimately end with Rampart. Rampart ends up getting, like, captured, right? Or did they liberate him? Am I misremembering?
I thought they captured him.
I think so, or at least they have him.
Yeah, he runs into he kind of gets away and then runs into another.
Uh-huh.
But I feel like we got ahead of ourselves just a little bit.
Yeah, we did. I'm sorry.
There are some beautiful interactions.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I kind of glossed over all the
mainly with Crosshair.
Yes.
Especially with Crosshair.
And with between Rampart and Crosshair.
Crosshair and Wrecker.
Yeah.
Because Wrecker's like, oh, we're going to go back. And Crosshair's like, who's made it very known at this point that he does not want to be here.
No.
He does not like this place.
Like the exact opposite of where he wants to be.
And he knows what's in. Because Wrecker's like, are you breaking back in? And Crosshair's like, dude, I don't want to do this.
And I think it speaks to Crosshair being the only one who really understands the gravity of what they're doing.
And if he even said, like, they caused this, and he kind of held up his hands, like, this is because of here.
I'm excited to see the resolution to the hand thing. I don't quite know.
I think it's going to be the redemption shot. But it might be Hemlock. Who knows?
Could be. There's going to be some sort of shot where he needs to be old school.
CX2.
No, maybe, if it's not Tech. But we'll have Tech watch later.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be in our portion I want to talk about after. But yeah, you brought up the discussion with Crosshair and Wrecker, but the discussion between Crosshair and Rampart was really interesting.
Yeah.
It highlights, just again, we've talked the last few weeks about how Rampart is just kind of awful.
Yeah.
Like, he really is out for himself, and he says as much to Crosshair. He says, we're the same. Like, you're not out looking out for them, you're out for himself. Mm-hmm. And Crosshair says, like, I've changed.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly believe him, but I was listening to Star Wars Explained talk about this episode, and they mentioned, like, could Rampart have planted, like, a little seed of doubt? Like, was Crosshair doing something, like, awry? And he was like, no, of course. But it did kind of make me think about, like, are there any little, like, signs that he may have not been on the up and up? I don't believe so.
I don't think so. I think Rampart, it's just who he is to try and get under people's skin.
Oh, yeah.
And I also think Rampart is genuinely curious, too.
Because they did work together.
And he's had a lot of interactions with Crosshair, and he's seen him at these polar opposite ends of, like, I've seen you be ruthless, and now you're this team player, save everybody. And he even says, like, what happened to good soldiers?
I was thinking that's a great line. And his response is, it depends on who's giving the orders.
Right, and that's a new Crosshair.
That's the personal growth.
Yeah, because old Crosshair, Good soldiers follow orders go all the way back to the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. I'm forgetting the name of when the inhibitor chips, that first mm-hmm. arc. I forget when when it malfunctioned and he shot the Jedi.
Was it Fives? No. That was later. Fives was trying to fix. I can't remember.
But that scene, where he said like, "Good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders," and that's been a theme, especially with the clones. Mm-hmm. Kind of what they've been indoctrinated to do. And I also think it shows how different the Bad Batch is than everybody else.
Yeah, I'm just very excited about the direction they took Crosshair because, like I said, I really was not the biggest Crosshair fan, and I think they've done an excellent job making him one of my favorite Star Wars characters, which is he's insane.
He's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's kind of wild. Anything else on the Bad Batch portion before we go and now talk about the Omega portion of the episode?
Nothing really is jumping out, but
no, I think we talked about the key points.
Yeah. Other than I'll save that for a little bit later.
Okay. So we're in now, kind of focusing just on what happened with Omega. She basically tells the kids to like distract Dr. Skadler mm-hmm. if she comes in. They kind of end up in this like lock down the base sort of situation, and we will talk about what happens with Emery. And I do want to say before we talk about like Emery going off to check on the lab and stuff, I thought it was interesting that Emery said the kids, make sure the kids are okay, and Skadler refers to them continually as specimens.
Right.
I think it speaks to, we've talked about for a while, like Emery having already made up her mind but feeling hopeless.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Huh.
As scientists, we both are.
Yes.
And as somebody who's done work with living specimens mm-hmm. at a level greater than cells, didn't they tell you not to get attached?
150%.
So are we saying Emery's a bad person? Are we saying the rest of the scientists, apart from Hemlock, are bad people, or are they just doing their jobs? And I'm not...
this is a great question.
I'm not saying this to try and say, oh, Dr. Skadler's a good person, but just in the profession that we have, and you being somebody who's been in the spot where you didn't work with kids, I mean, you worked with mice, mm-hmm. but I'm sure they told you don't get attached. You can't get attached.
No, I can't give them names, can't do it.
Exactly, and we're seeing that. So is this just good scientific conduct?
Now, that I think, we're really getting into the bioethics, but I wasn't ready for that this morning. But
me neither. I apologize.
No, it's okay. But I think at the end of the day, the outcome and purpose of the research is what differentiates someone who's being a good scientist from someone who's blindly doing something, getting caught up in what they can do and whether mm-hmm. they should or shouldn't do it.
I agree.
And I think because the point of this, we presume, is to make a bunch of clone Palpatines. Mm-hmm. They're not, and I who knows whether they actually know exactly what they're doing.
Because I feel like nobody really knows what's going on except for Hemlock. I feel like all the other people are just given a piece of the puzzle,
mm-hmm. which makes sense.
And then Hemlock's going to take all their pieces and put it together.
I think
Dr. Skadler's an a-hole.
She is,
but I also am not going to go as far as to say she's just cruel. I think she is.
We'll talk about that when we get to what the kids being distracted. But I think I understand the devil's advocate approach you're taking, but I think enlisting to do this kind of work for the Empire automatically puts someone...
But I'll say, did they know what they were signing up for?
I mean, they're in a secret base, working... Whether they knew what they're signing up for or not, they know they're kidnapping and holding children.
Yeah.
And doing experiments on them.
That's the part I'm trying to dance around.
Yeah, I know you are. I understand where you're coming from, and I think in a more nuanced character, that might come across. Maybe like Emery.
Yeah.
But for Dr. Skadler, no, I don't think. I think Emery is the character you're describing.
Yes. And I think Emery, like you said, she refers to them as kids.
Uh-huh.
She knows that...
She has made the attachment. She has kind of broken the scientific
knows their names. I mean... Heck, she even gave Eva the doll,
mm-hmm.
which, again, Omega seeing that.
Oh, so good.
Omega now knows that Emery caved.
Uh-huh. I think it... And Omega kind of... We've spoken to her on the last episode. We've talked about her, like, having her learned experience of not just coming right out and asking Emery for help, but kind of tugging at her strings a little.
Right.
And I think that might be doing more than Omega outright asking for her help. But anyway, we get bioethics now. I think bioethics corner is done for now, you think?
Yeah, it's a good segment. We should bring that back.
Yeah, we can talk about the intricacies of scientific research.
And misconduct.
Anyway, we then get to, Omega says, I need to go into the little hole in the wall that she found.
Right.
And the kids need to make a distraction for her.
Yeah.
First of all, I do love these kids. I think they're so endearing.
Yes.
Each of them have their own little charm. And I love the little baby. In the scene so Omega ends up climbing through this cool network in the walls. I really loved it. I thought it was so cool, like the little delivery system of things. We know that's what it's for.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool. You don't usually see in the Empire, like, behind the shiny walls and, who knows? There's probably something like this in the Death Star.
Oh, 100%.
So
the Death Star mailroom.
Oh, God.
It's got to be
disaster.
Huge.
There might be more than one of them.
Probably.
North.
Buddy the Elf.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
My Sith cloning chamber needs to be red. Anyway.
Can you imagine if Palpatine just went through with an interior designer?
I mean, someone had to come up with this.
A little too bright for me. Tone it down just a little bit. It's like, sir, this is black. Get it a little darker.
I like to think in his mind he wants it to look like his Exegol throne room.
Did you ever watch Robot Chicken?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, any of the Palpatine skits are hilarious.
My favorite one is the after the Death Star 1 had been blown up, and then Darth Vader's calling him. That's my favorite one. He's like in the middle of like a lunch order.
Did you ever see the one where he's on the escalator?
Yes. They really need to. I don't know if you've seen. They made like one or two with the newer, like Rey and Palpatine are in one of them. It's newer, but they need to do more of these.
Those are so funny.
I think we're getting there, but this is total aside. So please pause Bad Batch review. Let's talk about. I think when Disney bought Star Wars, and again, I love almost everything that Disney has done with Star Wars. And it's not Disney; it's the people at Lucasfilm doing it. Disney bought them. I think Disney, though, wanted to keep the brand of Star Wars really serious.
Yeah.
And, I remember I had this Obi-Wan and General Grievous M&M figures. Star Wars was in every commercial for, weird things. Remember the kid starting the car with the Force?
That was Disney.
Was it Disney?
That was Nissan.
I wonder what the time was.
I know exactly what the time was. It was Rogue One.
Oh, maybe it was.
Because Nissan came out with the Nissan Rogue.
Yeah.
In the Star Wars editions.
Yeah, I see. Well, I guess maybe not so much ads, more Robot Chicken, Family Guy. I think they took Star Wars very seriously. And I think we're starting to break with that. The Lego stuff has always been kind of mocky a little bit in a fun way. But yeah, I think getting Star Wars to a serious... getting Star Wars in a fun place and a serious place is good.
Mm-hmm. And I was wrong. It was Volkswagen, not Nissan.
Close enough.
But, yeah.
The same sentiment applies, I feel
2011.
That was before the sale.
It's
2012.
Makes sense.
Hey, maybe I was right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they have this sense of seriousness where I think...
Star Wars isn't serious at the end of the day.
No, and I think we're starting to get there. A lot of weirdness, a lot of fun stuff.
And I think, as we're going to talk about later... I think Disney's becoming more open to the nonsense.
Pretty much everything. I think they're softening up with it.
They're doing Deadpool.
Yeah.
And there's in the Deadpool trailer, which we're going to discuss.
Oh my God.
The last scene in the trailer is about the list of words of the things they can't do.
They literally made a connection between cocaine and Frozen. So we'll talk about that later.
Back to the Bad Batch. So Omega through the walls in the bowels of Tantus, and what does she stumble across?
Oh, so she comes up to this little vent. Now, first of all, I don't know what she was looking for, but I don't think she expected to find what she found. So she comes up to this little vent, and she sees this creature being tortured, and it's none other than the Zilla Beast, which we know from the Zilla Beast's last appearance that it was captured and returned to Tantus.
Yeah.
And Hemlock this season has even said, talking about all the different dark experiments that he's running, and that almost feels like my grad school experience. But he talks about this, and it's kind of foreshadowed. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't quite know what's going to happen with this. But basically, this is what Omega sees, and then it comes back. But I think we're going to definitely see some sort of connection between the Zilla Beast and Omega.
I think Omega rides the Zilla Beast.
Like Boba Fett. I ride or not. I think she might... Like, I think Omega see... Now knowing what we know with this episode, I think Omega seeing Ventress, like, tame... I don't know if tame's the right word, but, like, establish a connection with the scary creature and use it to kind of make it realize they're not enemies. Yeah. Could be really valuable. I think we might be understanding the Ventress episode a little more, potentially.
Mm-hmm. And who knows what we're going to see.
It is very true.
So while this is going on, because that's really all we know about the Zilla Beast.
Yes, we just know it's there, and we know Omega is now interested.
And Omega does make it back in time.
Mm-hmm. I was nervous.
As we should be.
Because we last time had a very similar thing. I was like, she's not going to make it this time. She's not going to make it this time. But speaking to, you said Dr. Scadler's not cruel. I think I'm going to say all the kids are trying to come up with their ways to distract each other. Yeah. And I think it was Eva that said she's hungry. And what did Scadler say? It'll pass.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Cruel.
Yeah. Okay. Well. I'm not saying she's a Nobel Prize winner.
And then let's get to the other one. Was it? I can't remember who. Was it Jax or Sammy? I think it might have been Jax. It said he wasn't feeling. I can't remember which one of them it was.
But Ava said she wasn't feeling well. Sammy said she's not hungry.
Okay. Then Eva said not feeling well. Does a body scan. She said, Scadler says your vitals are fine.
Yeah. As
if there weren't things that could be wrong that aren't necessarily vital dependent.
Yes.
Not cruel at all, Dan.
Okay. Maybe wasn't the best.
You were playing devil's advocate. I do get it. In order to boost up Emery, who we're going to talk about. Yes. But we ultimately get in this situation where they're buying time for Omega, which I thought was really cool. I think I last week talked about how maybe Jax could try to betray them.
Sell them out, yeah.
I was really excited to see them kind of have this all in it together mentality and them trusting Omega, which I really like because she kind of came in like a whirlwind.
Yeah. And I don't know if they realized that Omega was getting different treatment than them in the sense of they're calling her Omega
and not SP whatever.
So I don't
know. I'm
surprised there wasn't a ton of resentment there, but who knows?
No, it was. I was really excited to see that, and then we ultimately, like you said, Omega makes it, and she kind of indicates to them that she has a plan, and this is, we're kind of jumping around a little. We're not necessarily in line, but the last thing I want to talk about in terms of plot for this episode, because I feel like we've kind of
hovered,
and we've derailed a lot, but we see Echo kind of invading. We talked about him escaping the droid tube, and the ship and the droid tube. And he ultimately makes his way to the lab because I think he's able to get those coordinates from a terminal in the base. And he's able to kind of go through in the lab who they all have, and he finds Omega. And as he's doing this, and remember he's in his Storm TK Trooper armor, and he is able to find that information. As he's doing it, Emery walks in, and she knows immediately that it's Echo.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by that.
I mean, how many people have a what's the word for it?
Scomp link
for a hand.
Not many, I'd say.
And as Emery does eventually just come out and say, Omega's talked about you a lot. Mm-hmm. So Emery probably knows more about the Bad Batch than we know. She probably knows everything about all of them.
Because I do think her and Omega did form
a little bit of
in a messed up sort of way, a bond.
Trauma bonding.
Yes. And I think Emery...
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, and I think Stockholm Syndrome, especially with Emery, because I think she's kind of this is it. This is what...
Yeah, we don't know anything about her.
No, I still...
How... So other than that she's a clone and she feels like she was personally wronged by Nala Se, then that's what we know, and then she's now a scientist for the Empire.
And Echo... I echo. I wanted him to say, tell me more about yourself. I know we can't exactly exposition dump every episode, but
Echo knew she was a clone too.
Yeah, they know, and they're just kind of like, and even in that last episode with Rex, I think it was the first part of that set of episodes. He says, Omega's like, Emery's there, she's a clone, and they're like, all right,
yeah, cool.
Okay,
it's like female clones.
We're just not gonna like. I mean, I guess maybe they're normalized by Omega, but. There is some sort. I still think there's some sort of difference between Omega and Emery because I think the hair color.
Yeah.
I don't know. And like, why aren't they taking Emery samples?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they did.
Definitely.
But I don't. And I hate saying I don't know.
And that's okay. But we're not meant to know.
Yeah. And will we figure it out?
That's what I want to talk about after we finish talking about this is what's going to happen, what might happen, and what don't we think is going to happen.
Okay.
And we could be totally wrong. But we probably will be totally wrong.
If we get it right, good on us.
I'm going to buy party poppers for next time. Depending on what we select. Yeah. Or I'll be sad. But we basically end with Emery kind of immediately saying, like, I want to help. Like, you, in order for you to help them, you need me. Because he's not going to be able to get in the vault without her.
Right.
So I think this might be what we've been waiting for all season in terms of Emery making her, like, shift.
Yes.
I'm still a little nervous.
You're supposed to be.
I know. But I really don't think Emery's going to, like, backstab them.
I don't think so either.
I feel like she could be one that we see bite the dust, though. Let's hope there aren't many and others. But I think that kind of brings us to overall, I really enjoyed this episode, but it does kind of leave you like, all right.
What's next? This impending sense of dread for me is just overhead. It's like, there are these, how many main characters did we say?
A lot.
Like seven or eight really main characters.
At this point, 5 core members of the Bad Batch, minus Tech. Would you consider Emery?
I'd consider Emery.
So Emery, would you get Rampart? So we're at between 7 and 10. Yeah,
I'd say those are. I think maybe 4 or 5 do not make it out of the season.
I'm like, hoping for like 1.
And unfortunately, we do know that Project Necromancer is successful.
Not necessarily. So.
Or partially.
Were they able to make this is my hope, and I guess we can kind of spin this into hopes for next episode before we do our what do we actually think is going to happen. My hope for the next episode, the finale of the Bad Batch series, is that we see a connection to. I want it to, and I think we said this early in the season, like Rebels had a very impactful ending on the saga because it's like. If they didn't succeed in destroying the TIE Defenders,
right,
then or the TIE Defender factory, then maybe that would have been what got the Empire's funding more than the Death Star, and the Rebel ships could just not have outgunned those.
Yeah,
and I think that is such an important aspect, and is it solving a problem that the show itself created? Absolutely, but I think if we could make it in this show, so the Bad Batch is disrupting Palpatine's plans, leading to this like. Defective cloning that's happening on Exegol where he has to be hooked up to like a tube and a claw arm. Like if the Bad Batch destroying whatever's happening on Tantus connects, essentially makes it so Palpatine couldn't successfully clone himself.
Yeah.
That's what my hope is. Like the impact, how they do it, who makes it out, like I don't know. But I want it to have as powerful of an impact as Rebels.
I think it will.
I hope so.
And we know that they are still I think that is what's going to happen because we've seen in The Mandalorian they're still looking to clone for sensitive beings
in a way that and I think Gideon had taken it and kind of went a little crazy.
Yes, and I think that's almost a red herring and they're like, oh, Gideon was doing that for himself. No, he wasn't.
I think Gideon took advantage of
Gideon was tasked with picking this project up.
And clearly they would have had to have Exegol functioning. And we know from, again, I haven't read this book yet, but Shadow of the Sith, it's about Luke and Lando hunting for Exegol. And there's connection, basically implying that like Exegol had been set up before Return of the Jedi, basically. And I think whatever happens here might pave way for Palpatine being like, we need to move this off-site to our secret Sith headquarters and just try to make it work. Yeah. And it clearly works a little. Like, he's in this zombie body, more or less.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's my hope. Do you have any hope, like big picture hopes like that?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I hope that we get a good ending, and I hope that nothing is in vain. For you guys, because we don't have cameras yet, Joey just kind of smirked, and this, unfortunately, I think...
Is this where we're having Tech Watch?
No, I'm going to talk about my hopes first. Okay. I hope that everything's not in vain. I don't think it will.
I don't think it will.
I don't think they're going to be completely successful. I think they're going to get 90% done of what they need to do, but I think they're going to leave just enough where the Empire can continue building.
Yes,
even if it's so, like, we flip Rogue One, where they get the Death Star plans off of Scarif and on to I'm drawing a blank, the Tantive 4.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just like that, like, let's say that's how the Empire gets their crucial data off, or their crucial specimen of just one that leaves just enough to continue.
Yeah, it obviously, like we're saying, can't be completely successful because we know Palpatine is able to be cloned and come back and everything. But I wonder if it's going to be pitched more about getting the clones out and getting the specimens kids out.
What?
Right, because that's their current goal right now.
They don't know about the kids.
They don't know yet about the kids. Yeah. I guess Echo now knows about the kids.
Echo knows about the kids, but
is it going to be pitched not as destroying Palpatine's cool cloning factory?
Yes.
More as getting the clones out, or maybe the Zillo Beast just like.
What if there's a choice?
Oh God, this is. Normally I say you're pessimistic. Things are just like, no, I don't want to think. This is.
I can see them being like, we save the clones, we save all these clones, or we save these 4 kids.
And I feel like all the clones would be like, let's save the kids.
Right. But then I feel like our boy Echo will be like, clones.
It depends. Because Omega is a kid and a clone. I don't know. Let's spin this conversation into now. I first want to do Tech Watch before we say what we think might happen. Tech Watch. We haven't seen CX2 in a long time.
We haven't seen any of the CX.
We haven't seen any. There's no Tech Watch here.
No.
I feel like I might be eating my words here.
I don't think you are. I stand by what I said last week
about
the cavalry arriving.
I stand by the fact that I think it's going to be the good guys.
I think it might be both.
I don't know that they need the cavalry, the bad guys, because they already have a massive security force there.
But I mean, if it's breach,
what are they going to do?
Joey, we were at the point where Tantus was supposed to be secret. Nobody ever knew where Tantus was.
Not even people within the Empire.
And now there's been a security breach. It's like the Titanic, the unsinkable ship. All it takes is something to happen, and it sinks. It's like the Death Star. They designed it so perfectly, except the one exhaust port. They just need one thing to happen before the House of Cards crumbles.
So you're telling me Sheev is going to allow his top secret self-cloning project, we assume. But yes, that's totally what it is. He's going to allow that to be like orbital striked and they're going to destroy Tantus?
Yeah.
I don't see Sheev allowing that. Sheev loves Sheev.
They did it to Kamino.
They don't care about... Sheev doesn't care about Kamino.
I think they're going to... For as evil as Sheev is, he's very shrewd and very tactful. So if it takes Tantus getting destroyed... Because again, we're assuming that this is the only place where this is happening.
I'm thinking. That does make for an interesting podcast, but I'm thinking.
Like, while you think, I'm going to kind of give it a little explanation. We're assuming that Tantus is the only place where Project Necromancer is happening. We know from Rebels that the Empire likes to have backup plans and contingencies. So, if you come to me and say, there's another place where they're doing cloning research... I'd be like, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so I've come up with my thought in perfect response to what you're saying too. as I'm reformulating it in my head again, I think it makes sense that there could be a place, but I think this is the hub. Clearly, they can't do it without Nala Se.
I agree. They can't do it without Nala Se, and they have the Zillow Beast there.
And it's not been success. I mean, if it's been successful, they wouldn't be going through all these motions. I
agree. I just think...
I mean, do they have cloud storage with, like...
I don't know.
Is Emery's Lab Notebook on the cloud?
Should be.
You'd think it
should
would
automatically update. Shouldn't have to upload it to your computer first.
That's a whole other situation.
But
the Empire.
I think that there's likely at least another base.
It's possible, but I just don't see a situation where all the stuff that's happening there gets just blown to bits by the Empire. But I understand where you're coming from, and I think it's not out of the question, but it's not what I think will happen.
Or even if, let's say they don't orbital strike Tantus. I can see Sheev sending a group of part of the fleet, Tarkin's fleet,
okay,
to go defend Tantus. Because like you're saying, it is this very crucial place that was supposed to be impenetrable, but now it is.
I'm liking this concept maybe of both the good guys and the bad guys having cavalries and separate cavalries arrived. And that brings us to, again, next week's episode is called The Cavalry Has Arrived.
Right.
Before we do our wants list, which is going to connect back to this conversation we're having, because we are kind of running long, we're at 46 minutes already.
Oh, right.
Do you think that the secret episode is a thing? To recap, there's 15 episodes scheduled currently, with The Cavalry Has Arrived being the 15th episode. Do you think it's just a really long episode? Or do you think they're going to surprise us with 16? Because the creators have tweeted stuff out about 16. The previous seasons have had 16 episodes.
I think it might be a double.
Just essentially combining 15 and 16 together?
Yeah.
Do you think it's weird that it's probably just going to be one episode? Or it's definitely going to be just one episode?
I would rather have a double episode than 2 single episodes.
I agree.
Because I feel like if there is a surprise 16th, they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger, and we're going to get really angry. And then next, it's going to come out on Wednesday.
You think it'll be Wednesday or May 4th?
Probably May 4th.
We also wouldn't want it to steal Tales of the Empire.
It's just that I think it'll be Wednesday.
If it's a thing. I don't necessarily, at this point in my life, think that it's a thing.
Right. You have to see what happens. But I'm not sure. It really does depend on what happens. And I know that's such a basic answer.
It is. And now I kind of want to bring that into we want to talk just a few things, a few points that we think won't happen, might happen, and probably will happen. Okay. And again, this could be fun for us to talk about our success rate with this. But what do you think won't happen in this episode? The finale of the Bad Batch.
Ooh. I do not think we see... No, I was going to say something, and then I just realized
you would say Sheev.
No, it's something different.
I don't think we're going to see... I don't think Ventress is coming to Tantus.
I didn't think Ventress was coming to Tantus. I want to see... I'm going to say it, but I don't think it's going to happen, but I want to convince myself it's in the maybe.
Uh-huh.
What if the cavalry's our big friend in black?
I don't think they can bring him into this, right?
I mean, if she wants something done...
So are you going to say that... Where are we putting that in? Won't happen, might happen, or what?
Won't happen. Or the Inquisitors?
Inquisitors, I thought... But they're typically reserved for Jedi-based activities.
But this is important.
It is important.
And almost as if they're going to protect Force-sensitive.
I almost feel like the Inquisitors might be more likely than Vader. But also, since it's so important, Vader could have... I
feel like Vader... Palpatine could trust Vader enough to be like, just go get it done. Don't say anything. And
I think that would be not great for the Bad Batch. No. At all.
Hypothetically, what if the good guy cavalry consists of Rex?
That would be a very interesting...
we get a Vader-Rex interaction?
Let's put in likely. I feel like we're going to see Rex and other clones.
Oh, 100%. Do we see Wolf, though? Will we see Wolf?
I think that's a might. I don't think we necessarily will see it.
I was going to say, I think we do see Wolf, but we don't see Cody.
I think won't happen is Cody. I don't think he's been in it enough
But that would be the perfect time to bring him back, though.
This brings me to another thing with won't happen. I don't think we're going to see, like, Rex and Wolf end up on their ATT.
No, because where are they going to get that from?
I don't think we have enough real estate left in the show to do that. I'm going to call that Rex and Wolf. And we're going to recap everything at the end of what we think might happen. Likely, I feel like some characters will escape Tantus.
Yes. I think likely all the kids make it off.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about... I feel like likely we're going to see one or more casualty.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't love.
I wonder if D. Bradley Baker is going to get paid less because characters get killed off.
You got to wonder. On Might, I'm going to put... This is where we're going to do our tech watch this week. It's not going to be long. I think we might see CX2 tech reveal.
We might. I don't know. At this point, I still think tech is dead. But if it is tech, I would not be surprised.
No, I think you might have... I'm running on the wire. This is the last time I can talk about this. My faith is wavering for the first time.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think Crosshair's redemption shot is CX2, which then is revealed to be the person formerly known as Tech.
That's about all they... Something like that is about all they can do.
That would be.
It would be sad.
Just for everybody.
I think, it would not...
This fall from grace for Tech. And again, it's not like his fault. It's not like he went and willingly joined the Empire. But, like, if it is Tech, and just the role reversal of Crosshair and Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think, as in the chaos, if I were writing the Bad Batch, which we know would not be great, but if I were writing the Bad Batch, in the chaos, I would have CX2 capture Omega. And then I would have Crosshair, hand tweak, kind of, able to get the shot off.
Mm-hmm.
Eliminates CX2 and revealed to be Tech.
That would be brutal.
It would be terrible.
You've been championing this concept for a while, and I really hate it.
You hate it because you know that this could very well happen.
Yes. Well, let's stop talking about that because it makes me sad.
It'll be sad, but if that does happen, I will be so happy that I was able to predict it.
For a while. But I want to say things that are likely to happen. I think we will see Zillow Beast Carnage.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
And leading to something that might happen is like Omega using the Force. And if the Zillow Beast is truly destroying the place.
Do we think... I cut you off. Finish your thought.
I was going to move on to the next thing. So because I feel like we're kind of running long.
I don't feel like Omega uses the Force in the traditional sense. I don't think she's going to pull a Sabine and Force push.
No, I think it would be establishing a connection to the Zillow Beast. Is really...
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Because, no, I don't think she's going to be, like, pulling stormtroopers.
Can you imagine Omega's just casually walking down, Force chokes Dr. Scadler?
Yeah, I'm going to say that's unlikely.
Puts her down.
I think Palpatine connection to Exegol is something, too, that we could see. Potentially. Like, maybe a post-credit or, like, the last
Exegol and Clone Wars animation.
That would be phenomenal. Any more Exegol content. So, currently we have, and this is just obviously not a comprehensive, it's just stuff we come up with off our head. Not happening. We don't think we'll see Ventress. We don't think... Unlikely to see Vader or Inquisitors or Cody, and a resolution to the Rex and Wolf storyline where we pick up in Rebels. I think this does leave kind of between Cody, Rex and Wolf, the Clone Rebellion kind of thing. I think this could lead in potentially to another show or another story or something.
Tales of the Clones.
Or something like that. For maybe, we are potentially thinking a CX2 tech reveal. I'm not bringing up any other concept we've talked about with CX2 because it makes me sad.
I'm not saying anything else about CX2 other than I think CX2 will be one of the casualties.
I agree.
Regardless of what it is, who it is.
I think,
what cyborg it is.
It's not going to be good for CX2.
We'll get CX3.
Omega, for Mites, we have Omega Force use to tame the Zillow Beast, Palpatine connection to Exegol, and likely we have Rex and other clones showing up, potentially seeing what happened with Wolf, some characters escaping Tantus, and also having some casualties, and then some destruction by the Zillow Beast.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I'm very excited about this episode. I'm very nervous. The show makes me very, very nervous.
As it should. It's not meant to be fun.
No, apparently not. with that, do you have anything else to add about the Bad Batch?
I can't wait to see how it ends.
Me too.
Supposedly ends next week.
I'm very nervous.
Should be.
So, I think we're kind of all over the place and talked a very long time about a very short episode, but I feel like we kind of are pulling in some of the big ideas.
Yeah.
And pulling in what we hope to see in the last episode. So
I agree.
I think it should be very good and very exciting. But that brings us to the second part of what we're going to talk about today. A little bit of a discussion on the Deadpool Wolverine trailer. I'm very, very thrilled about this movie. As I've said previously, I'm a massive X-Men fan. I grew up watching those movies and the animated series. And Hugh Jackman, Wolverine has always been my favorite character, and I loved Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And it's been one of my dreams to see him in the yellow suit, see him with the mask, and seeing this fully realized in the trailer was just everything I could have ever wanted. And the connection with Deadpool. Those two characters are oftentimes very connected, so it was very exciting to see that. What did you think about the trailer, Dan?
Oh, I thought the trailer was phenomenal. Ooh. Sorry, I in preparing to discuss this, I went on the movie's IMDb page.
I don't always trust that, but
I don't think you're gonna want to hear what's on it.
I imagine a bunch of old Fox X-Men people.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what we see before we talk about what we don't see.
Right. So these are the people who were in the trailer and confirmed to be the major people.
Mm-hmm.
So as we know, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman are in it. Emma Corrin is Cassandra Nova.
Which I had the pleasure of explaining who Cassandra Nova is to Dan. If you're not familiar with that character, she is like another... I don't know if it's fully twin. I haven't fully read these comics myself, but Cassandra Nova was in the womb with Professor X as a baby, and he like punched her out and killed her, and then her like consciousness got sent to an alien entity, and then she ends up coming back. So weird, typical X-Men weirdness.
Yes.
Very interesting character to see.
And then we have Morena Baccarin as Vanessa, is obviously back. Rob Delaney as Peter. Saw him in the trailer. Karan Soni as Dopinder. Leslie Ugamas as Blind Al.
I love Blind Al.
And Matthew McFadden as Mr. Paradox.
Who is that character?
That's what I am looking up. Mr. Paradox is the guy from the TVA.
Okay. I think that's kind of where I want to like just the way that they're finding to pull the MCU characters.
This is
pull some of the Fox characters into the MCU is very enjoyable.
I would not have expected Loki to lead into Deadpool.
No, and connect to the X-Men. I mean, what we see a lot of the action happening in this trailer is in the Void, we believe, because we see Eliath, the character from Loki, the big purple cloud that is able to, after they get what's it called? We've done this before.
Pruned.
After they get pruned, they end up in the Void, and I think this is where we're going to find like the Fox X-Men universe is going to be a timeline that got pruned. Mm-hmm. I've seen a few different theories about like maybe the sacred timeline from Loki is not, and I'm not sure where I've seen this theory, so I apologize, but the sacred timeline could be something that was fabricated to not have mutants in it. Yes. And the actual timeline does. Or I've told you about Secret Wars, the comic line where they're going to make a movie about it, where it's like this combination world of a bunch of different things. So like, I think we're ultimately leading to a large mutant-filled MCU. Mm-hmm. And in the Void, we see a lot of previous characters from X-Men movies. And I don't know if you're as familiar with these.
I was actually looking them up right now.
So we see Toad. Ray Park is playing Toad. So Darth Maul.
Yes.
Is playing Toad.
Oh, yeah.
Lady Deathstrike is in there. Azazel. A ton of former X-Men villains are working with Cassandra Nova. Jennifer Garner,
as to the IMDb page, is listed as not a rumor cast member, as a cast member.
I've seen a lot of this.
Josh Brolin is listed as a rumored cast member for Cable.
I've seen. I don't want to.
So is Professor X.
I don't want to delve too far into this because I've seen a lot of speculation online, and people can go and add this. Like, this isn't Disney adding this.
No.
I've seen a lot of speculation of Tobey Maguire Spider-Man,
and that's why I'm thinking this adds a little bit of credibility because he's not listed.
I don't know. I've seen so much. I've seen every X-Men.
The people who are listed on IMDb are Elektra, Cable, Deathstrike, Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
That would make sense.
Professor X is rumored, but
it would make sense.
As you said, Toad, Yukio, Azazel, Pyro, Shatterstar, Colossus.
Again, would also make sense.
Yes, that's it.
The Elektra is the weird one. Does that mean we get Ben Affleck, the Dung King, as Daredevil? Because that's where Elektra is Jennifer Garner.
Yeah, but they're also
married.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get Jenny from the Block.
The Dung Queen. That's not official.
No.
But yeah, I think it is set up in a way where this Wolverine, they've implied that this Wolverine is all the other X-Men from this Wolverine's world have died.
Yes.
And I think that's what those pillars are that we see, like graves.
Kind of, Mr. Paradox implied that it's his fault.
Yes, or he couldn't say it. Like he didn't say it.
He failed. I think the exact quote is, "This Wolverine let down his entire world."
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what happens, and I think it may not. I don't necessarily know that this. I mean, the Logan from Logan. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. I'll watch it beforehand. I know it's sad.
I'm going to say I don't think, based on the events of the Logan movie, that this is that Logan. I don't know if it's like, and that movie is kind of set apart from the rest of the X-Men. Like,
he looks young. I know in Logan he's older.
He's older, and a lot of stuff has happened to him. I think this Wolverine is almost more like what you see in the original X-Men movies, and again, the Fox timeline is really, really, really messy.
Yeah.
And I think they can kind of, clearly they're pruning it.
And this is the beauty of it with the multiverse.
It could just be a variant.
There's going to be so many. And we know there are because Mr. Paradox says, this Wolverine, meaning there are more. There are more who did not let. And I think in the trailer we see... Sorry, I just came to a realization. I don't think we're going to see the same Wolverine throughout the movie.
I think we might see multiple.
I think, remember, because when you and I watched it, the day it came out, you said, oh, now he's not wearing sleeves. I think that's a different variant.
See, I don't know if I agree with that, but I do think we will see other Wolverines. I think this Wolverine, this specific one, the one that failed his timeline, I think that is going to be the one that's buddy-buddy with Deadpool the entire time. Yeah. But I do think we will encounter other Wolverines.
I agree.
Like are you familiar with Patch?
No.
It's a Wolverine that wears an eye patch.
That's sweet.
And he is like, I don't know if it's a spy. It's been a while since I'm familiar with Patch, but I think we could see some other different versions of Wolverine, or like an X-Force Wolverine or X-Fact. I can't remember which one it is, but he wears like black uniform or something. Like, I think we could see many Wolverines, and I think that the way they're structuring this movie is brilliant, because from No Way Home, from Multiverse of Madness, we see they're kind of treating, rather than creating their own different multiverse stories, they're treating the other movies like it's all going to end up being connected, which I love. And this bursts the door open. One of my favorite theories that I've seen is Chris Evans as Human Torch.
He should bring him back.
And like, you know, I mean, Deadpool's going to make so many comments throughout this entire movie that I think are just going to be fantastic.
Almost. Maybe he'll make 4 of them.
Oh, wow. That's another rumor.
What if we get introduced to the new Fantastic Four?
I mean, there has to be a reason they announced the cast, right? Would be cool.
I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either. I think we'd be more likely to see the original cast of the 2000s movies rather than the new one. But
maybe we'll get John Krasinski.
Oh, I'm still sad about that. He was great in the little part that he had.
He would have been such a good one.
I know, and I love Pedro Pascal, but
I just can't. I'm sorry, he's just not Mr. Fantastic.
I didn't think he was Joel either, I have to say.
I think he's a better Joel, because after his work with The Mandalorian, I feel like he could pull off Joel.
See, I have a very different perception of Joel in my mind than Pedro Pascal.
Would you prefer it to be Troy Baker?
I don't think. I'm happy they went with a different interpretation, but it's just not who I had in my mind.
That's fair.
And I feel the same exact way about Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
And I think he will pleasantly surprise us. But I think just with this, I've seen some theories thrown out. Again, this trailer is just leaving us ripe with theory and some speculation, which is what this discussion kind of is. But I've seen some speculation that when the MCU does their X-Men, like I've been saying, I hope for a while, they're going to like recast and do a whole new set of X-Men. But I think they said this Wolverine and like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man could be like play an important part in this upcoming multiverse stuff. Like it'd be almost independent of the new X-Men that are coming for the MCU.
My worry is knowing that fans are totally and completely rational.
Oh yeah.
As being a Star Wars fan myself, if they were to recast some of these X-Men, will not go over well. See, they cannot recast Wolverine.
I don't agree. I think people have had their fill. I think anything after Logan, the way they ended Logan, the way they marketed Logan, the way Hugh Jackman talked about Logan, anything after this is a bonus. But I don't think Hugh Jackman can play Wolverine in the context that the new MCU needs him.
I just think that he's one of those characters who the people will not be able to associate with anybody else in their mind. It's like Daniel Radcliffe and Harry Potter. Can you imagine if they recasted Harry Potter and it's not him?
I disagree because we're so in this multiverse, firmly in this multiverse. We know there literally is a female Loki.
I understand that. I do. And I understand where you're coming from. But I just think people will forget that and they will not people don't like change.
I also don't think that they make decisions based on internet backlash.
But this is different.
When they recast, and again, it's not recasting. It's technically just it's a different character.
I know that, but imagine if they just reintroduced a new Luke to us.
Again, very different. You're describing stories that aren't multiversal.
I know that. I know that. You know that. But does our boss know that? Our boss is a Marvel fan. Not as in-depth.
But I see those people who aren't as in-depth and aren't as in tune with the multiverse, they probably don't even care about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in the first place. I'm going to stand firm on this one. I don't think I'm going to come to the middle on this.
I don't expect you. I just think it's one of those roles where it's just... I can't picture anybody else playing that role.
Recall that there have been 3 Spider-Men played by Spider-Mans. Spider-Mans. Like, if I'm referring to multiple of them, I think it's Spider-Mans. There have been 3 Spider-Mans, all played by different actors, all in the same movie. They didn't reject Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield because Tobey Maguire was so fantastic.
I agree.
And I think it's the same thing. They're not going to reject Joseph Quinn as Human Torch. You're going to say they're not as iconic.
I'm going to steal a line from the Deadpool trailer. He is the X-Man. He is what people think of when they think of the X-Men.
No, I think your perspective here on that... I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead, finish.
No, I think the average person, when they think of the X-Men, they think of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
And I think this speaks to your inexperience with the X-Men. Like, if you watch the animated show, which you said you want to, it is not Wolverine focused. Wolverine is just a member of the X-Men. I think this is this emphasis on Wolverine is an artifact of the Fox movies.
That's why I said the average person.
I just don't think that we're really spiraling here, but I don't think that this is necessarily. I don't think that the average person. I don't think they care.
I disagree.
You
go to another franchise and you take one of their most iconic actors or actresses and say, it's a new storyline, but we're putting in a different person.
You're describing Spider-Man.
I know.
That's all I got to say.
I understand that, but just think, you know darn well that there's going to be people who are going to hate it. I know I'm describing Spider-Man, but they also didn't claim to be linked until now. I don't know.
That is true. And I just don't think Hugh Jackman can play Wolverine forever. And
I don't expect him to.
In the X-Men, in its truest form, and it varies throughout the comics, but they're typically a younger team. Like, they're like 20s and 30s.
And that's my point. I'd rather see new characters than them trying to bring in older characters again. It's like you've told me, there are so many X-Men.
Oh, yes.
Let's highlight them.
And I think they're going to, but I feel like you're fighting me on it a little here.
No, I'm not fighting you on it. I'm fighting you on that recasting. I believe that having a new Wolverine will do them more harm than good with their viewers. And that is all I'm going to...
I have every faith in my bones that Hugh Jackman is not the MCU Wolverine.
Oh, I agree. But my point is, I don't think MCU necessarily needs a
Oh
Wolverine.
my God. Okay.
What's wrong with that?
Because they need... I think Wolverine should be part of the X-Men team, but it can't be Hugh Jackman in the MCU. They're going to make X-Men movies in the MCU. I think Wolverine needs to be a part of them. I don't think Hugh Jackman will play that Wolverine.
I don't think he will either. I'm just saying, I think when this comes out, there's going to be backlash that it is not Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. And that is going to be a huge talking point, and I think people might not like it because of that. People hate change, regardless of what they say.
I aggressively disagree, but it's okay. We're spiraling, aren't we? We're supposed to talk about the Deadpool trailer. Now we're talking about the future of the MCU.
That's exactly what this is.
It's true. It's a bridge.
This movie is the ultimate bridge.
Okay, so let's connect back to the trailer, but continue our discussion. At the very end of the trailer, not the part about the cocaine, the part where... Are we allowed to say that?
I don't think it's a swear word.
I guess we're in charge.
Are we Feige?
We're not Feige. I don't want to build a snowman, though. But at the end of the trailer, we see a Doctor Strange, Wong, magic-style portal, presumably transporting the Wolverine that we see and Deadpool into the MCU as we know it.
I'm going to say one thing before we go on.
Go ahead.
If they're bringing that Wolverine into the MCU, why wouldn't it be Hugh Jackman? That goes back to the argument of recasting him.
This Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, is going to play a role in the upcoming stories.
Yeah.
I'm 100% confident of that. That's why they're doing this.
Right.
I think he's going to play a role in the Secret Wars movies, the next set of Avengers movies. But, so what are they going to do? They're going to magically have X-Men in the next phase.
Right.
And it's going to be all new cast, except for Hugh Jackman.
I just don't think they'll bring Wolverine after Hugh Jackman. I think we're going to move on from the Wolverine story. That's what I'm saying. I just think they're going to say... Because listen, if, like you say, you think he's going to be part of Secret Wars and the upcoming MCU projects...
I think Hugh Jackman Wolverine will.
Right. Then I think we're just going to pivot. Because then what... I just think we're going to pivot away from Wolverine for a while.
I think the argument could be made with that, and they could do like the very first X-Men team is Jean Grey, Cyclops, Angel, Iceman, and Beast.
Right. Well, I'll put it this way: what if they bring in a new Iron Man to the MCU?
So this is where I think it's different from that. That's why I've not brought him up, because that is an established MCU character. Mm-hmm. This new Wolverine actor I'm proposing would be Tom Holland to Hugh Jackman's Tobey Maguire.
Right. But, and my point is, if they do bring those two, the people we see jumping out of the Pym person, the Ant-Man.
Yes.
And bring those two into the MCU, and that's their introduction into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm. That means the Wolverine in the MCU is Hugh Jackman's.
There is not currently a Wolverine in the MCU.
I know that. That's why I'm saying. If what you said, they jump into the... I'm assuming it's Wong's portal. I'm just going to
So they call it Multiverse of Madness 616, the sacred timeline.
Yes.
You're referring to where most of our stories take place.
If that is them jumping into 616, which I think it could be. Mm-hmm. So you mean we'll get a new variant?
This is a variant of Wolverine. This is
the new person you're introducing.
I believe Hugh Jackman. Okay, let's go back to Secret Wars. All of the incursions, the multiversal incursions.
Yeah.
That it ultimately ends with one planet converge. There aren't timelines anymore. Right. There aren't variants. There aren't multiverses. It's one planet. Mm-hmm. I think that's where we see a whole reset of essentially the MCU.
Yeah.
Where we have your Avengers team, which may be like, I don't even know what it'll be at this point. We're talking years down the line. Yeah. But I think this is where we start to see your Fantastic Four, which we know takes place in the past,
right?
Converge and take place in the present. So we'll have Fantastic Four, X-Men, Avengers, like the Marvel comic universe, all taking place at the same time. I think it's going to pull everything together. And I think rather than pulling the Fox X-Men in, we will see that's where a whole new X-Men team is there. I think whatever happens with this Wolverine is separate.
Yeah.
I'm describing after all the events that happen with this multiverse saga.
Yeah.
That's when we start to see the new X-Men.
Oh. Okay, that makes more sense.
I don't think we're going to see X-Men. I don't think Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds jumping through a portal means the X-Men are in the MCU all of a sudden.
Okay.
Was I not explaining myself properly?
You probably were. I just didn't get it.
This has been a fun 10 minutes of our podcast.
I think it just, again, it goes back to, depending on, they'd have to pitch it right.
This will be confusing, I feel like. No matter what they do, no matter who is...
And they're going to do it well.
Agreed.
They have one shot to do it. And honestly, I think they picked Deadpool is the best character to do it with because he's so chaotic.
And he can make jokes about it, and he can talk to the audience.
And he breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, he can directly talk to us,
yeah.
Which I think is a very unique device. Now, I think Ryan Reynolds will play Deadpool as long as he possibly can.
I agree. He is Deadpool.
And I think if we get to a point where, God, we're talking years down the line, where Ryan Reynolds can't be in the suit, we could do a Mandalorian situation where he's voicing it, but not necessarily. So yeah, I think we're as usual, we're hovering around the same concept, but just a little different.
And that's fine. But back to linking it to the MCU. This is the best way to do it.
I agree completely.
And again,
I think Deadpool, if you were to bring one character from the Fox X-Men movies,
he'd fit right in.
I think he's the only one that I would need.
It's a shame they killed off Iron Man because those interactions have been fantastic.
Now, maybe who knows with the multiverse? I mean, literally, as we're talking, like, this is why this trailer discussion is so chaotic, because the doors are wide open.
Yeah.
Maybe we see another Iron Man variant.
Yeah.
I don't think that would do a disservice to everything we see in Endgame.
I agree. I
think some people might, but who cares? As I've said previously, Who cares? If it fits the story, it moves the MCU forward.
Yeah. The MCU needs a win.
Look,
I'm one of the people who agrees that all their new stuff is pretty good.
Varying amounts of good.
I generally liked everything. But the larger consensus is, among the people who watch it, the MCU has taken hits, and it has been falling off.
I agree with you that that's the consensus, but whether that's deserved...
But remember, though, what is the ultimate goal of Marvel Studios?
To make money.
To make money.
This trailer's going to make them a lot. This movie's going to make them a lot of money.
Again, and I'm going to link the Star Wars sequels in here.
Oh, dear.
I feel like some of those movies, especially The Last Jedi, was written to give us what they think people wanted.
I think The Last Jedi was written to give you the opposite of what you wanted.
Oh, well.
The Force Awakens was...
Yes.
I feel like The Force Awakens was arguably the most successful movie.
Yes, and that was framed...
Financially.
And that was frame for frame, A New Hope.
We're going to talk about that. It is not.
It is more or less A New Hope.
There's so much more to it. There's stuff that A New Hope has that Force Awakens... We're not talking about Star Wars right now.
Okay.
I disagree with you, but it's okay.
I think that's... From the business side, Marvel Studios needs a win, and they're going to get it with Deadpool.
I feel like, but what about Guardians 3?
Guardians 3 was its own separate,
but it's Marvel Studios,
and it was its own, but it's not connected to the bigger timeline.
Are you sure?
That's what they said. Well, I mean, of course it is, but remember when that movie came out, they said this is a Guardians 3. This is the ending of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm. As we know it.
Do not think of it as to the bigger story. This is strictly about the Guardians of the Galaxy.
But at the end of that, we have a whole new Guardians team that I would imagine we'll see again.
I agree. But it's not like, for example, Ant-Man 3. They use that.
I feel like these are the two pillars that we can stand on for the MCU is doing fine or the MCU might need a win camps.
And the argument is that the MCU really tried to bring a lot in with Ant-Man 3. Correct? Is that fair?
I agree. I think I still don't fully know what they were after.
And that's just it. That is the point I'm going for. They tried to do it. If they would have taken the time to what they're doing with Deadpool, I feel like Ant-Man 3 could have been done better. And it doesn't help that we lose our big bad.
I wanna highlight the most recent releases just to kind of go for it. We'll start with No Way Home. We're going to do a win versus critically received well. Spider-Man Home, No Way Home, fantastic. Multiverse of Madness, where do you think that would lie?
Ooh, are you asking my opinion?
I'm asking
knowing the answer?
The consensus.
Okay.
Not you.
Okay,
so that's kind of in the middle.
I think it was okay. Like what
I love. Love and Thunder was not received well.
I agree, but I like the movie.
Me too. But we're talking about like Marvel needs a win concept here. Wakanda Forever, I think, was received well.
But I also think Wakanda Forever, the movies you're talking about, Wakanda Forever was not contributing to the greater overall timeline as much as some of these other movies.
I think you're viewing the MCU in a way that I don't love. Because if we look at Phase 1, I'm just going to pull up a list of Phase 1. Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger. You could make the argument in the same way that those aren't working towards the larger story.
Because at the time they were released, there was no larger story.
There was a larger story. They were planning Avengers the entire time.
Oh, and that's fair.
They knew exactly what they were doing. We didn't know what they were doing. In hindsight, it's so easy to sit there and say they're not building towards the larger story when you don't know what the larger story is yet.
That's fair.
So
I feel like now we're at the point where Endgame is our nexus. Everything is either pre-Endgame or post-Endgame.
Agreed.
And I think a lot of things there still is in the post-Endgame era as opposed to moving into the new era of Marvel.
I again say I don't think that is accurate.
But
I think I might be in the minority of what people think with that.
Again,
I think you are representing what the more consensus.
And I'm not saying I agree with them. I need you to know that.
Yes.
I really enjoyed I watched The Eternal, Shang-Chi. I watched all of it.
I love the Marvels, but that's a whole other story.
Oh, I like the Marvels too. It was fantastic. I did not watch Secret Invasion.
Don't. It'll further make you feel like the MCU needs a win.
But like The Eternals, I thought The Eternals was good.
I still need to see that one.
It's different. And I think this is just it. I think the people are going into it with expectations of Endgame level things.
Every single story. And that's what frustrates me.
But I will say, Marvel Studios got them to that point. I mean, you look at Infinity War, box office smash. And I think Captain Marvel would have done better if they didn't introduce her a month before Endgame.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then have her play a big storyline. For example, if they introduced Captain Marvel before Infinity War, and then so we knew all about her, and then she comes in, it would have been different, in my opinion.
I think we're kind of sidestepping what we were initially intending to talk about, but this could be the state of the MCU discussion too.
Because I think this is a critical point for the MCU.
I think you are going to, let's say, wholeheartedly believe.
Separate me from my opinion.
I wholeheartedly believe that whatever contrarian idea you're representing, the general public or whatever, I think when the next Avengers comes out, people are going to be singing its praises about how they've built up to it all along. And I think people forget because we had that period in like 2018 where Infinity War, Endgame are coming out. They had tied all the threads together. I think nothing they could have done after that was going to give... I think they could have done every single thing right. Everything could have been a hit.
Yeah.
But they weren't going to... People would still be saying it's fallen off.
I think they're still in the wake of Endgame. I think
we're not anymore.
I disagree.
The Marvels, Guardians...
The Guardians, yes. We're out. Ant-Man, though. Pulls back to Endgame.
But also looks forward with Kang. Kang is his own issue. We can't talk about that.
I've really been avoiding that. But I think as we start to move away from these characters who are in Endgame, and this is what I think the biggest issue is, you have these characters who are in these crucial movies and played really crucial roles, and then as we move away from that, they're still being compared, either consciously or subconsciously, to that.
But Marvel Comics... characters play roles in multiple storylines. So we can't say it's connecting to Endgame just because Sam Wilson is in the movie.
We have to forget, though, What population of the MCU viewers read the comics?
It doesn't matter. It's a single character. We can't say Luke Skywalker, if you want to pull in Star Wars. Luke Skywalker can't be in Episode 7 because he was in Episode 6.
That's not at all what I'm saying.
I feel like that to me sounds like what you're saying.
No. I'm saying that the perception of Luke Skywalker changes.
I feel like we need to stop talking about the perception.
But the perception is the most important thing. Because what
the perception
MCU,
is important to
what
you.
Is the role? What is the job of Marvel Studios, who makes the MCU?
They're going to make money regardless of what they do, and not necessarily like the Marvels, for example. But when I think they are very consciously laying the groundwork for what they're doing next, and that's where I think we might differ, in our opinion.
I think they're doing it. Don't get me wrong. I think they're doing it. But I think the general perception is they're not doing it well.
But this is what I'm saying. Anything after Endgame could... I don't think they could have done anything after Endgame in terms of individual stories to build up to the next thing.
I know that
would have...
I know.
So then what do you want them to do?
That's just it. What do you want them to do?
No. I know what I want. I want them to do what they're doing now. What do you want them to do? What they're doing or now. You as the... I feel like I'm arguing with the representative of the internet here.
As the... proclaimed representative of the internet. I don't know what I want them to do.
Exactly. That's my point.
I know that. And no matter what they did, it would be wrong. But for example, you're having people who watched all the shows, all the movies, not watching them anymore. You yourself are included in this group.
That is true.
You are not watching the newer stuff.
That's not true. The only thing I haven't seen in the MCU is She-Hulk, Eternals, and Shang-Chi.
All of which
I have seen.
Supposed to be playing, as you said, be the players in the next phase of the MCU. Shang-Chi is going to be a pivotal person in this next phase of the MCU.
And they already said they're starting to produce the sequel of that movie.
But that's my point. But you haven't seen the original.
No, I will.
That is exactly what I'm trying to say here. You're saying they're laying the groundwork, and they are, but people aren't appreciating the groundwork.
But people didn't before. People didn't appreciate Iron Man. Like, our boss, for example, wasn't watching Iron Man 1, wasn't watching Thor, wasn't watching Captain America, because people like that didn't feel like they needed to.
But now we're at the point of the MCU to where it is, where everybody knows it's important.
I just think, much like sometimes when we talk about Star Wars, I feel like you might be placing too much of an emphasis from the creator's perspective on what people want.
But that's
I really don't think they consider stuff like this. Like, I think, for example, let's say a rumor
who does consider stuff like this?
Let me finish what I'm going to say before you speak. You're going to say Disney, Bob Iger.
No, I was going to say somebody else.
Who? Okay, so for example, I think they're going to tell the story they're going to tell. It's going to happen. So, a rumor that I saw is that the Monica Rambeau story was going to have its own TV show. Whatever happened in the post-credit scene, which we really should have talked about with connecting to the X-Men universe, because I'm a little confused about that too. But that storyline, they said, because of the reception to the Marvels, they're going to pivot and include that storyline that's going to happen anyway elsewhere. Mm-hmm. It's not getting its own project. That's the kind of thing that I think affects the shape of the MCU. But I don't think people's perception is going to, because some people didn't like the Marvels, they're just going to write off the Monica Rambeau, for example.
I'm not saying they're going to write them off.
I think it's not influencing the story, the perception.
But it is.
It's not.
If we would have gotten a Monica Rambeau TV show, we would have been able to influence the story in a different way than we are as a subplot in something else.
But we're ending at the same destination.
But it's about the journey.
Okay, if it's about the journey, then maybe another character gets more focus.
Right.
What are we even talking about anymore?
We're talking about the people who don't read the comics.
Listen.
The majority of people do not read the comics.
I mean, I don't even read the comics anymore.
Exactly. So when you're talking about they don't take this into account, they do take this into account. They want to make money. They're going to write a story that is going to make the most money possible. Because there are the people, you and I included, who say we're going to watch everything they put out. Correct?
Yes.
There's the people who will watch it regardless. But they know they're going to get those people to come watch it. They're not worried about those people. They're worried about the people who want to go see a movie on Friday nights, but don't really know what to watch.
But every movie does not need to be Endgame. Every movie
That's
doesn't
my
need
point. But it needs to be able to stand alone on itself, which is some of my critiques with the MCU.
So which movies haven't been able to stand alone themselves other than Ant-Man?
Some of the sequels are too in-depth.
Like what?
I will say this. You're going to hate me for saying this. When I watched Endgame for the first time in theaters, I thought it was not a great movie.
You hadn't seen the other stuff before.
But that's exactly my point. They are relying too much on the interconnectedness of all the other storylines.
But that was the point of the movie.
I know.
Okay, we're going to call it here. We're going on an hour and a half.
I apologize.
I think in the future, I want to have conversations with Dan, not a representation of the internet. I want your opinion, not the internet's opinion.
I've been saying this from the beginning, that Marvel relies too much on the interconnectedness of their stories.
I 100% disagree with you, but I think that's the strength of the story. That's the strength of these
my
characters.
View on what makes a successful superhero movie. Can the movie stand on its own without knowing any backstory? And that's what I think defines a good movie.
I think that is true for Iron Man 1, Deadpool and Wolverine. You can't say Avengers, which is the ultimate team-up movie.
I didn't bring up Avengers
Endgame. Avengers Endgame.
I know. And again,
I think you can't say those big team-up movies.
Yes, and that's fair. But
that's the point. This is what we're building to.
I agree. But now I'm talking about movies about, like, Shang-Chi. These new movies, which Shang-Chi stands very well on its own. You never had to have seen anything else to think that is a good movie.
And I think that was largely true about a lot of the things that they've been releasing.
Except the Marvels. And Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel... I don't know. Miss Marvel is my favorite thing they've released recently.
I really enjoyed watching Miss Marvel. But like She-Hulk. That's... People did not like She-Hulk.
I think there are other reasons for that people didn't like these things that are not good reasons to not like things.
That's fair.
Anyway, we're going on an hour and a half. This is the longest episode we've ever had, and it's mainly just us yelling at each other.
But productively. So,
yes and no.
To sum everything up, Bad Batch next week finale.
Very excited.
Supposed finale. Excited, yet sad. I'm not looking forward to it in the sense of something bad is going to happen. I know it's coming.
And it's even if everyone makes it alive and it's happy, the end is still the end, which is sad.
Right. It'll be sad for one reason or another. I think Deadpool and Wolverine is the perfect bridge into the MCU.
I completely agree with you.
And I think the characters we're going to see will be exciting for the people who know who they are. For example, you versus me. If Deadpool and Wolverine came out today, and like let's say we were going to go see it after we finish recording this, we would both appreciate the movie. You'd have a deeper appreciation because you understand who these X-Men are. And you know a little bit more of their backstories.
Yes.
And I think the future of the MCU, where they need a win, I don't agree with it.
Okay. Good.
You heard me ramble on for 40 minutes about how whatever I was saying. But I was trying to capture the average viewer. And the average viewer does not necessarily appreciate having to watch 30 movies before going to see one.
And I think we're in a spot now where they will say, like, this is what this is. And this is what I'll end on. This concept of watching movies that build up to a larger movie is the foundation of the MCU. It connects deeply to the comics. And if you're not into that, then you're not watching those movies.
Well, I think at this point in time, that at this very point in time, where they have all these movies beforehand, I think that will be a turnoff to people who are trying to get into it.
But again, like, it is what it is. It's the nature of, like, what are they supposed to do? Start over? Like, say, after Endgame is done, we're starting a new Marvel Universe right now. Is that...
I don't think they're trying to start a new Marvel Universe.
No, I'm saying, is that what you say they should do?
No.
So what should they do?
They just need to move into their new storylines, which I don't think they're doing as well as they could. You don't like that? And
I disagree with you. Loki.
Well,
like, WandaVision. Like, all these things are pushing past Multiverse of Madness, No Way Home. It's all... Guardians of the Galaxy. Everything I'm saying is pushing these characters forward.
But they're not going to be in the new stuff.
What?
Like, are we ever going to see Loki again?
100%.
Loki himself.
100%. That Loki, time god Loki, we will see him again. I'm confident. You don't put Loki in that position to not show him again, especially in a multiversal story where I've told you Secret Wars is what's coming and all the multiverse goes away.
Yeah.
So we'll see that Loki again.
Fair enough.
We'll see the Guardians, I'm confident. The new ones.
Yeah.
We already know Peter Quill will return.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're doing with that, but we know we're going to see Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel. We're going to see Doctor Strange again for sure.
Yeah.
Captain America, Sam Wilson. We're going to see all these characters again.
And my belief is that the majority of people are not necessarily... The reason they think Marvel needs a win is because the same characters were in the Infinity War and Endgame, and they cannot dissociate between what's now and what already happened.
So this is where I again say to you, what should they do?
They can't win.
Okay, and that's where I have a problem with your perspective, or the internet's perspective, if you will. And on that, do you have anything else to add for the day, Dan?
Nope.
All right, we do love each other.
Yeah, that was
heated.
Not really. I wasn't getting heated.
I get frustrated when people make incorrect claims that are not a matter of opinion.
The whole podcast is a matter of opinion.
Listen, Marvel needing a win, opinion for sure. But Marvel not building to their stories, I just don't think a more casual Marvel fan is aware of what they're doing right now. And trust me, and God willing, we'll be doing this podcast as this is happening in the future. But when these Avengers movies come out, I want to remember this discussion.
Oh, yeah?
When the people...
Who is Shang-Chi?
Guy that has to do with the 10 Rings. But when the Avengers movies come out, I'm not sure if you heard Toaster, but he's just as heated as we are. Probably because someone's standing outside. But when these movies come out and people are all up in arms about how wonderful they are again, I want you to remember this conversation.
I'm not saying...
Because it's going to happen.
I'm not saying the movies aren't bad.
We're going to have some... From the casual internet people that you're talking about, we're going to have some revisionist history going on where... Because these movies are good and it's pulled in all the MCU characters with Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire, they're going to be like, this is the greatest thing they could have ever done. Oh my God, I love it. That's all. That's all I have to say.
And all I have to say is they need to keep going with what... Like, if you want to bring all these characters into your new thing, get them more involved.
Well, they are. Let just real quick before we go. We said we were going to go a while ago, but... Upcoming, we have Deadpool Wolverine, Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolts.
This is good. I'm excited for this.
Fantastic Four. Blade.
Excited.
Avengers 5, Avengers Secret Wars.
This is my point. See, they're finally starting to move away from the Endgame
But
people.
you can't just drop Endgame off. Like, you can't just immediately dive into the next thing without dealing with... I personally think it's a strength that they are dealing with the aftermath of Endgame while also pushing the story forward.
I agree.
Maybe they're not doing it at a rate
fast enough. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I really do, whether you believe me or not.
I don't know what I believe at this point. I think I might need a margarita.
It's in the morning.
It's 5 o'clock.
So all I'm saying is... I'm glad they're moving on, and I think it's good to wrap up these storylines because as long as these characters are in the MCU, they will always be associated with Endgame, which will skew the perception of that movie. And on that note, I'm not going to let Joey have a rebuttal because I don't. We've been going around in circles.
We have been going around in circles. It's got to be frustrating to listen to. I apologize.
Yeah.
But anyway, that concludes our heated Dan's birthday edition of the Blue Shadow podcast. We're excited for the Bad Batch. We're excited for the future of the MCU.
Believe it or not, I'm excited. But joke's on Joey. I've seen more of the new MCU than he has, and he's in his ivory tower.
That's true. I will report back after I finish Shang-Chi because I feel like I'm getting
Yeah, I'll talk to you in like 4 months.
We'll see. I still got to beat Final Fantasy. We've been going on about that for a while. Anyway, feel free to leave us a hopefully positive review on the podcast platform.
I wouldn't blame them.
I'm either. The podcast platform of your choice. Subscribe if you're interested. And give us a follow on Twitter at Blue Shadow Pod or on Instagram at Blue Shadow Podcast. And take a look at our Facebook or YouTube pages, which are Blue Shadow. With that, happy birthday again, Dan. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I apologize.
And we'll see you next time.